Hey guys, this is Jim, WT1W, and you're watching FEPLabs Radio. Thanks for stopping by, I appreciate it. Today, we're going to talk about this guy. I just bought this recently. This was not provided to the channel. This is a Stryker SR955 HPC radio. As you can see, this is sold as a 10 meter radio. I believe it also does 12 meters as well, out of the box. This is what is referred to as an import radio, which means it can be opened up fairly simply to do 11 meters as well. I'm a licensed ham radio operator. I'm going to only operate on CB, probably only ever monitoring, and if I ever feel like transmitting on CB band, I'll certainly have the power turned down to the legal 4-watt limit on AM and 12 watts on single sideband. And I'm not going to jack up the power to 60 or 100 watts, nor am I going to put an amp on this thing. Let's talk about the radio. So this is a really nice radio. As you can see, this box is pretty large. The radio is not small. This is about a $450 radio, I believe it was. And of course, on the back of the box, it shows all the various function buttons, knobs, and no real explanation of what they all are for on some of these. But we'll get into that in a minute. Anyway, I've already unboxed this. I was just sharing this very colorful, beautiful box with you. All right, let's get to it. Let's take a look at the radio, and then what we're going to do is connect it up to a dummy load and our MFJ digital meter and see what kind of power it's putting out on different bands and in different modes. Okay, so now that we've seen the outside of the box, here's what comes with the radio itself. Of course, we have a manual for this specific radio. This is okay. It at least tells you what the basic functions are. It's not really super in-depth, but it could get you started. Of course, we're going to have a microphone with the radio. We have a power cord. I've might have already been playing with this, and I put power poles on it. It comes bare-ended wire, and then of course the 4-pin connector that is power for the radio. And it comes with a USB cable because this radio is USB programmable. However, this cable does not work with Windows 11. So if you're running Windows 11, you can't use this cable. I have not researched. It uses a prolific chip. I think I have other cables that do work with Windows 11 that have a prolific chip. The key is finding a prolific cable that has USB mini on the end of it. So this could be awkward. The CPS software looks like CPS software. I looked at it briefly. I don't know that I care about that, but there you go. And of course, it comes with a mounting bracket and then all the assorted hardware that you would need, including, it looks like a sticky back microphone holder mount kind of deal, and quick release knobs for fastening the radio to the bracket, and of course screws to mount the radio to the bracket. It mounts similarly to any other kind of mobile radio. The size on this thing is kind of impressive. So the radio itself is 8 inches, and including the heatsink, 11 and an 1/8 long, including the heatsink. And then of course it's about a little over 2 inches high. So it is not a small radio. In CB land, these things range quite a bit. This one is one of the larger CBs for a non-base station style CB radio. So taking a quick look through the manual, of course it's printed on very nice paper. The instructions are only in English. It talks about the pieces that we just went over, how to mount it, antenna connections, tuning your antenna for SWR. You can put in an external speaker. Of course, it talked about the USB programming jack. It has a PA connection. That's a thing with most CB radios, apparently. And then it goes into detail about all the different buttons and how you can access everything. So it has pretty much everything you'd understand to have in a mobile radio. You can adjust power. You can change modes between PA, AM, FM, upper and lower sideband. It has a high cut filter, a dimmer switch to tone down the LED screen. We'll look at the screen here in a minute. You can enable or disable your Roger beep and there's about 7 or 8 different little sounds for Roger beeps if you're into that. You can use tone squelch on this, so this could be used with a 10-meter repeater as far as that goes. The clarifier, this is similar to what's in a Yaesu radio. The clarifier is just a super fine tune of the frequency, way down at the hertz level, the hundreds of hertz level or smaller. And there's actually 2 clarifier connections. One is a little bigger chunk of bandwidth, and then there's a fine one that's even smaller, so you can really dial in if somebody is not exactly on the frequency. Echo, this is a CB guy thing. I don't know that I will ever use it, but there it is. You can turn it on and off. We can change the colors of the front screen. We can use it as a scanner to scan through pre-programmed channels. We can change our bands on the radio. This is a multi-band radio. Of course, we have a microphone input, a VFO, volume control on and off, squelch, mic gain, RF gain. The noise blanker, automatic noise limiter, works pretty well. We can increase the volume and the time of our echo and the delay. Fine control for the clarifier, coarse control for the clarifier, and of course channel selector if it's in channelized mode. And that covers pretty much all the buttons. Here's a picture of the front. And of course they go through and they list what all those specific buttons are. And it talks about alternate microphones and installation. And then we get to navigating the functions in a little more detail on each of those function buttons and how they work. And then these pages were intentionally left blank. And that is the entire manual. So let me put some electricity on this thing, and let's take a look at what that front panel looks like. All right, I've cut off the overhead light so we can maybe see this a little better on camera. So we turn the radio on here. It will come up with that pleasing tone, which you can turn off. And then you can see our screen here. Probably the coolest thing about this radio is that you can change the LCD and all the backlighting various colors. So we can loop through the colors, and it will just cycle through every color of the potential backgrounds. Or we can hard pick one. Blue, green, greeny blue, red, red blue, I guess. Yeah, I'd call that purple. Red green, orange, red green blue, I'd call that blue. And then back to our loop. So we're going to put this to red because that shows up fairly well on the camera. So that is about everything that the radio will do. I'm not going to go through all these controls and how they actually work because that'd make this a 40-minute video. Has been modified so I can change it over to the CB band. It is not type certified for CB. So if you're on CB, you're going to turn down the power because CB is limited to 4 watts output power. On the ham bands, of course, it's better. We can run it at full power, which is I think about 60 watts. In a minute we're going to hook it up to a power meter and take a look at it and see what kind of output power we're getting on the different bands. So that is the basic controls. I don't have an antenna hooked on it at the moment. We'll hook it up to a dummy load and take a look at all of that. Okay, so I've got the radio set up now. We have our MFJ 849 digital SWR watt meter, and we're hooked up to an MFJ dummy load. And I'll put links for all this stuff in the description below. They will be affiliate links. It helps out the channel. It doesn't cost you any more. So if you would, and you're interested in any of this stuff, take a look at it that way. The radio is set up in 11-meter CB mode at the moment. We are transmitting into our dummy load, so nothing's going out over the air. So I'm not going to identify or anything else. We're just going to test it. What I want to look at is power. So here is the mode switch, and we're going to go through all the different modes. Let me turn down the volume. And you can see down here on this radio, and what makes this really nice is we have an S meter at top. There's our output power, and here is a digital SWR meter. The radio has a built-in foldback circuit so that if your SWR is over 10, I believe, it will automatically discontinue the transmission and not allow you to keep keying up. So it will protect you from badness. So what I want to do is let's test it at min power and maybe mid power and then full power on each of the modes. And again, we're on the CB band here. We'll jump to 10 or 12 and take a look at those as well and see if there's any difference in output power. So the other feature this radio has, which I didn't mention, is, and they call it monitor on this radio, just like monitor on an ICOM or a Yaesu or a Kenwood radio, so you can hear yourself talking. Test 1, 2, I gotta turn up volume. Test 1, 2, 3, test 1, 2, 3. Of course I have to turn it on first. Test 1, 2, 3, test 1, 2, 3. And the purpose of that is so that you can play with the echo delay and the echo volume and tweak it and hear what you may sound like, as well as adjust your RF gain. So that's what that does. That is exactly the same thing as it is on a ham radio. A lot of CB radios call it talkback. We're just going to turn it off because I don't really care at this point. So the outside of this is our output power. So in FM mode, key up audio, because FM has a carrier, doesn't matter. Let's roll that up. That's about a third of the way or so, 9 watts. There's halfway, 15, 3/4, 33, and full meal ticket, 42.5 watts on FM. All right, if we go to AM, let's roll it all the way down. 1.6 watts, 1/4 gives us 2.5. Halfway gives us 6 watts on AM. So here's the thing, if I'm running this on CB mode, and I might key up, I probably wouldn't run this more than that much output power, 4 watts. That's legal CB AM mode. All right, so half power, 6.5, 3/4, 9, full meal ticket, 13. Let's go to sideband. And again, this is on the CB band. We're going to test it on 10 meter in a minute. So we hit about 30 watts there. Not bad. Not legal on CB, but not bad. Got about 35 peak. And of course, we've got a 1-to-1 SWR because I'm shooting into a dummy load. All right, let's change bands and go down to 10 meters and see if our power output changes on AM, FM, and single sideband. Okay, I've got the radio in the 10 meter band now, so let's do the same test. There is 10 meter FM. We're going to roll our power all the way down. It already is. And at 10 meter FM, we're getting 2 watts. As we go up to 1/4, 7 watts. Halfway, 15. 3/4, 33. And full meal ticket, 45 watts of FM. Let's go to AM. Minimum power, 2 watts, almost. Quarter power, 3.2. Half power, 6. 3/4, 10 watts. And full meal ticket, 13 watts on AM. Audio, 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 audio. And we could play with our mic gain on this. Let me turn up the mic gain a little bit. We could max this thing out probably. Audio. No, not really. About the same. I have the mic gain about halfway on this guy. The other thing I didn't mention, and I thought it's worth pointing out, so on mic connections on CBs, there's 2 or 3 basic styles that I've seen. This is the 4-pin connector, which is standard. And this uses an aircraft style connector, just like a ICOM radio typically does, with the plug, and then it screws on to hold it in place. There are CBs that use something like an RJ45 connector or an RJ11 style, telephone style connector, whatever. This particular one is using the 4-pin aircraft style connector. A lot of radios you can buy. There is a large market for aftermarket mics for CBs. A lot of radios will come with adapters, especially if the radio does not have this style of connector on it. It will come with, or the company will sell on the side, an adapter to go to a standard 4 or 6-pin style microphone. Anyway, so now let's go to upper sideband. Let's roll that power down all the way. We got about 2.5. Let's go to quarter power. Somewhere between 2 and 6. And you guys can't hear some of this. I'm going to clean up all the audio and whistling in post-production. I'm hollering into the microphone, so because no one wants to listen to that. And then let's test it at 3/4 power on upper sideband. I think we hit 50 there for a brief second, more like 40 to 45, and then full meal ticket on sideband. Okay, so we've hit about 55 to 60 watts. The radio is rated at 60 watts full power. We might as well check sideband. I'm not going to go through all the rest. Let's just do sideband at full power. Yeah, about the same thing, which is what I would expect. So that is the Stryker 955 HPC 10-meter amateur mobile transceiver. There are 2 or 3 versions of this particular radio. I'm not sure which version number this one is. If you're interested in modifying, you can Google modify Stryker radio 11 meter and you will find the answers everywhere. The fix is either incredibly simple and takes literally a second, or the complicated fix takes upwards of 30 seconds and is not that complicated either. Guys, that is going to be about all I have for this radio today. I have to get out to my truck and finish my install and try and figure out where I'm going to mount this big some gun in the truck. Y'all, have a great day. 73. Talk to you later.